Aloha kako. My name is Walter Ritte. I live on the island of Molokai. I was born on Maui and raised on Molokai. My educational background includes Kamehameha School for boys. There was one for boys, there was one for girls. And you only see them drive by on the bus and you say, oh, those are girls. I remember those. Went to University of Hawaii for 3 years, and the Vietnam War came along, and everything went haywire on that one. Then I went to San Francisco College of Mortuary Science. That's an interesting college. You guys should try that sometime. Got my license, decided that wasn't my bag, and then went to Windward Community College for a year, then went to Maui Community College for a year, and then decided that I had enough paperwork and came home. Went home, became a hunter, raised my family as a hunter, then became involved in raising fish in aquaculture in giant fish ponds that our ancestors left us. Then I became a homesteader, and then we turned our fish ponds into an educational center as well as raising fish. So those are some of the things that I was involved with, and I became very, very active in my community. I guess they called me a community activist because I couldn't stay still, and I kept going onto private property looking for deer all the time. So this community activism got me involved in access rights, and I knew nothing about rights, and Hawaiians had rights, and we could go here, we could go there, and Kamehameha gave us those rights and all those kinds of things until I had to feed my family. So because of that, I ended up at the 1978 Constitutional Convention. You mentioned Section 5 and Section 6. There's also Section 7, which allows us access rights as Hawaiians, so we can feed our families without going to Safeway. Then I got involved in trying to regulate development on Molokai, and I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna cut this thing a little bit short. We got involved in water wars. We got involved in trying to protect Haloa, our taro, when we went against this institution called the University of Hawaii Manoa. They thought our taro was just a plant. They didn't realize that it was part of our family as Hawaiians, and we had to remind them that, in fact, it was our firstborn. And that was a battle that we won. They tore up the patents that they had on our taro that they was going to sell back to us, and they signed a memorandum of agreement saying that they will not GMO our taro. Today I'm also involved in trying to figure out how all of you can know what you're eating. Lots of us are getting sick because of the things that we eat, and now we don't even know what we're eating. So we're insisting that people label GMOs, and that's a right that we all have. So I'm involved in those kinds of things. I'm also involved in this thing called the PLDC, where they're taking our lands, and the paper says stop. So I'm gonna stop. I just wanna say one last thing, and that's and that's that I'm running because I feel that OHA provides me a greater opportunity to provide for my kuleana that I have towards our land and our people. Thank you.
With that, let's begin. What is the role and kuleana of an OHA trustee at large? Please specifically address the fiduciary duty that OHA's trustees have to OHA's beneficiaries.
If we're talking about kuleana, so we need to understand from a Hawaiian point of view what we should be doing. So we need to understand that we need to protect and try and do things for the beneficiary, the betterment for for the beneficiaries. But we need to also realize that the beneficiaries are also part of the land, and the land is also part of the beneficiaries. So when we look back at our culture and our history, we find things like the land is the chief, and we are the maka'ainana, we serve the land. And then we also find mo'olelo about Haloa, and that Haloa was actually the firstborn, and we were the secondborn. So with those kinds of mo'olelo, we begin to understand where we stand as humans on these little islands in the middle of the Pacific. So we are one with the land. We are inseparable. So our kuleana is not only to money and to assets and those kinds of things, it's also a kuleana to making sure that the future generations have water, that the future generations have fish in the ocean, that they have food in the rivers, that our forest is not the invasive species of the world, and that our farmlands are not all covered up with houses. So those kinds of things I think are really important that we need to address. And that the problem we have is that as Hawaiians, we have been disconnected. We have been disconnected from those mo'olelos. We have been disconnected from our kuleana. We seek our rights, but we don't accept our kuleana. So I think, and I agree with others here, that we should be taking leadership positions in the state of Hawaii when it comes to those kinds of issues, because the state is leading us in the exact opposite direction. And we find that with the PLDC, we find that with the flurry of bills that are anti-environment and anti-regulatory. So we need that kind of leadership is really needed today in the state of Hawaii. And I'm hoping to get onto OHA and become a community activist in OHA and to try and help organize the Hawaiian people so that they can stand up and take their kuleana and provide the kinds of leadership that is going to make sure that our future generations have the resources for them to survive also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, what will your #1 priority be if elected as an OHA trustee? Please identify specific actions you would implement to support that priority.
Yeah, for me, the top priority for myself is unity. And the second priority I have is aloha aina. So in order to accomplish the second, I think we've gone through several phases as Hawaiian people. And the first phase was like for me anyway, was in the 70s when we were going to school, and the purpose of going to school was to make us all Americans so that we could compete in this new world order that had come to Hawaii. And I went to Kamehameha schools, and when I got out, there was no overthrow. There was no Queen Liliuokalani. There was none of that. We were not taught any of that stuff. So we were just taught how to become really good, industrious men and women. And today we find ourselves in a much different situation. So I think our goal is still the same as it was in 1978 when we helped to create OHA, was to try and figure out how Hawaiians could control their own destiny. So right now we've gone through the phase of becoming all Americans, where we did not know any of our history, to now becoming Hawaiians that are really interested in their language, their hula, all kinds of stuff Hawaiian. And in the process, we've been fighting with each other, saying, you know, on Molokai, this is how we do it. You know, on the Big Island, this is how we do it. In my halau, this is how we do it. In my canoe club, this is how we do it. So we went through that phase of fighting with each other. You know, my sovereignty group is this, and your sovereignty group is wrong. And it's a natural process, I think, to be fighting with each other. So we've gone through all of those beefs with each other. And now I think the time is that we're tired of fighting with each other, that we now come up with a goal that we can all agree to, which is controlling our own destiny again. And I think that the Road Commission might be an opportunity for us to do that. OHA definitely is an opportunity to use OHA as a tool for us to get to that direction. And I want to get involved with OHA. And if I do get involved with OHA, I'm going to go out and use my organizing skills and make sure that OHA is not a state agency, that OHA actually has a people base where people participate, it's transparent, and people want OHA to succeed, and people know exactly what OHA is doing so that it becomes a solid base of people. So when we go back to negotiate with other agencies, we negotiate from a position of power. And so that's my main goal, is to use my skills as an organizer and to try and unify the Hawaiian people around, and using OHA as a vehicle to do that. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Ritte. In light of the recent Kakaako Settlement, what would you propose to do with OHA's newly acquired land in Kakaako, and how would you fund that?
Yeah, the Kakaako deal is a really good example of what I was talking about earlier, where an agency goes into and talks to another agency, and they go into the back room and they come up with a deal, and then they take it out to the people and say, this is the deal. And we've been working on this deal for 20 years, so we need to get your support on this deal. And it was kind of like an OHA-centric deal where everything is going to be done on Oahu, and then the money going to be made over here, and then it's going to go out to all the people on all the different islands. And it's like we're going to wait for the crumbs to come to the outside islands on this deal. So this deal also forces us to be developers. And I've been fighting development on Molokai for like 30 years now, and I realize that development is not really the answer to all of our problems. It's the beginning of many problems. So I'm not really in support of this whole idea. The first thing I would try and do is do some kind of a trade, you know, and find out if we can get more food security lands on all of the different islands where we can grow food for ourselves, and try to get some valleys and things like that on the different islands, and trade away this landfill that they gave us. Out of 1 million acres, they gave us 20 plus acres. I don't know, that was a really bad deal. And I really don't think that I want to be involved in being a developer. So I'm going to have a hard time with this Kakaako deal. I think I might even want to trade it for Lanai. Thank you.
What should OHA's stance on the rail be, and why?
I guess I cannot speak for OHA because I haven't been elected yet. That's next couple weeks from now. So I'll speak for myself. So I'll speak for myself. And it's hard for me because I live on Molokai, and I don't like people telling us on Molokai what is good and what is up and what is down, you know. But because this is, you know, the lawyers asked this question, and I'm going to answer the lawyers. I'll blame you guys. Okay. So first of all, I cannot support rail, and this is from looking from afar. Yeah, I'm not the guy that has to go in the traffic every day. So from somebody from afar, you know, I don't see rail as a solution. You know, I see rail as really continuing the problem. You know, it's like, here's this huge problem where your quality of life is going down in that thing you flush, and people are trying to figure out how to get out of that, and they think rail is going to get them out of that, but rail is just going to add, and it's just going to continue. It's like a spiral that is going on. And this is somebody who lives across the ocean watching what's going on. But that's my view of the rail. It's not a solution. It's really the continuation of a problem. And the other thing that really bugs me is how they treated the iwi kupuna. And that's a problem that is inherent in all of the things that we're doing here as a state. And that was really troublesome. So in that sense, I'm really like, I don't like what the county did with the iwi kupuna. I don't like what the state DLNR did with the iwi kupuna when it comes to rail. So that's another reason why I don't like the rail, is because how they're treating our iwi kupuna. And they're gonna, it's not over. They're gonna attack our iwi kupuna because they're gonna still wanna put that rail there, and they're gonna blame the iwi kupuna for costing us $9 million a day and all these kinds of problems, until people get mad at the Hawaiians and mad at the iwi kupuna because it's hurting their pocketbooks. So for those kinds of reasons, I cannot support this rail project. And I cannot say no without saying some kind of a solution. I think we need to try and figure out what is the carrying capacity of this island. I think your parking lot is full. You guys just don't realize it, you know? It's like, you know, it's like, whew, I feel really good when I got to go back Molokai because I can just kind of like relax. Driving on the freeway, I just all tense up and stuff. But every island needs to be self-sufficient. We cannot come to Molokai with a cable and say we got to give you guys more electricity because you guys don't like turn off your lights and stuff. So it's like we have to be self-sufficient. Each island needs to know their carrying capacity. Each island needs to know what they can and cannot do and how they can and they cannot live without bugging the rest of the guys on the rest of the islands. Thank you.
What specific piece of legislation would you introduce or support as part of OHA's legislative package for the 2013 session, should you be elected OHA trustee?
I think I got about 30 bills that I would introduce. So, but I would start with water, land, and use. And I would introduce bills that made sure that OHA had a seat on the Water Commission. And the justification for that is that we've had like 3 or 4 Supreme Court, State of Hawaii Supreme Court overturning this Water Commission with their decisions. And all of the decisions were supposed to be, there's five, that's even worse. So that's better justification for us to have, for OHA to have a seat on that water commission, because it's just going, it's costing everybody money, especially the taxpayers, because our interest is not being represented. I would also, I would put all this in one package. I would also have a seat on DLNR. And the justification for that is that we have 20% interest in ceded lands. It's so obvious we need a seat on that agency. They also had Supreme Court overturns, especially when it came to our EV. So they're not looking out for our interest. And we can't, I don't know about, you know, it's like you go fishing. Why is all the boats coming to Molokai looking for fish? You know, so somebody's not managing over here. So we need a seat on that DLNR. And the legislature is taking away all of their funding, cutting their funding. The federal government is threatening to cut their funding. The PLDC is a perfect example of what shouldn't be happening with DLNR. So all of these reasons, I feel, would justify OHA having a seat on DLNR. OHA also needs a seat on the Land Use Commission. The way these lands are being used, these guys have become like, I would be ashamed to be on a Land Use Commission. You know, just carry this rubber stamp that you have in your pocket and just bang, you know, for the developers and for the people who want to put houses on our farmlands. So that's the main one that I would go after, is making sure in one package deal that OHA has a seat on the Department of Land and Natural Resources, that they have a seat on the Water Commission, and that they have a seat on the Land Use Commission. And that would go a long way in solving many of our problems that we have as Hawaiians today before they get into major problems. Thank you.
The next question here is with regards to the Public Land Development Corporation. What can we learn from the current discussion around the Public Land Development Corporation? Specifically, what role should OHA have played in the formation or prevention of the PLDC? What was done well and what could have been done better?
The last legislative session, a lot of us were busy. OHA was busy because they was trying to get $200 million. Even I was busy, was trying to have a labeling hearing for GMOs, and they wouldn't even have a hearing, so I was so angry. I missed this whole thing that was coming down about this PLDC. And OHA missed it too, because I didn't hear them making any noise. But the way I heard about this PLDC was because of the staff from OHA sending out emails and saying, this is PLDC, this is what it's all about. And I went, holy smokes, we was all sleeping. But we really weren't sleeping, they were sneaking this stuff in, that's why. And I thought OHA did an okay job after the fact, but they should have been awake before the fact. I really like this PLDC. And the reason I like it is because I'm a community organizer. And this is a great issue. Everybody is so pissed off about this thing. Every single island is mad about this thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, we can use this and teach these legislatures a lesson. You know, there's the audacity of these guys to pass this kind of stuff and the way they pass this stuff. So I have mixed feelings about this PLDC, but I'm anxious to get into OHA and organize around this issue and get everybody together and repeal, repeal, repeal. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we'll be moving on to questions that have been submitted to us by the audience. And so this time, a really controversial issue right now is the 30-meter telescope on Mauna Kea, the proposed 30-meter telescope. What is your stance on the proposed 30-meter telescope, and what do you see as OHA's role in advocating for or against the issue? And I wanted to start with Mr. Ritte.
Yeah, we have a legend about Makavalu, and I don't know how many eyes you need on that mountain to see the stars. You know, I think Ekahi is good enough. You know, so I guess it's part of this whole thing about bigger, better, best, greed, all that kind of stuff, and it's all the way in the house of our gods now. So sooner or later, we're gonna have to put our foot down as Hawaiians and really say this one word in Hawaiian, which is aole. And that is a really good issue to say aole. You stay out of the house of the gods. One eye is good enough for you. You're lucky you get that one eye. Make best use of it. Live within your means. stop putting in, I don't know how many they're going to put up there. And they keep saying they need bigger ones, more. And it's this institution that's supporting that kind of stuff. So you lawyers, take a look at that one. They shouldn't be putting these things in the house of the gods. It's a special, special place. And I'm totally against that whole idea of putting that many telescopes on one mountain, or a couple mountains, in fact, 3 mountains. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritte. Next question we have here from the audience is, what should the role of non-Hawaiians be in the formation and implementation of OHA policies? They get to vote for you, but will you think of them when you are a trustee? Are Native Hawaiians your priority? And I'll turn this over to Mr. Ritte.
In the 70s, Hawaiians were supposed to dance the hula and smile, and everything was going to be okay for the rest of the generations. And it would be better if we started diving for quarters and stuff, then we could get rich. So with that kind of an attitude, we now have people saying, well, I don't know if I want to vote in OHA because I'm not Hawaiian. And the answer is, well, the law, Rice versus Cayetano, changed OHA from being a Hawaiian institution to an institution for everybody. So in my view, it's like, okay, 1978, we tried to form an organization so that Hawaiians would participate in politics. So Hawaiians could determine their own future, because Hawaiians was not participating in politics, because politics was having a bad effect on the Hawaiians. They were losing their land. It was all negative. Politics was all negative. So now we have an institution that is not only for Hawaiians, but it's for everybody. So the people like myself who are running, I want to get in. And if everybody is to vote, I'll be a Lolo guy to say no vote. So I'm out there looking for people who like, who hug trees. You know, hey, vote for me, I hug trees too. You know, that kind of stuff. But in the long run, I'm thinking to myself, this institution that was created in 1978 is no longer useful for the Hawaiians, that we should dissolve it one day and figure out how to get a better mechanism so we can determine our own future without everybody telling us what to do. And we've been following everybody else, and we have no more fish, we have pilau water, it's going downhill, it's not working. So I'm hoping that the Royal Commission is going to be one way, that it's an actual opportunity, or is it a threat? But I'm thinking maybe it's an opportunity for us to create something better than OHA, so that we don't have to have an institution that have to be with everybody. We have that at the legislature. Those guys fight every day. You go to the federal government, they don't do anything. They just fight, fight, fight. So why should we follow those roles? You know, we should create something where, like the Ahupua'a system, the Ahamoku system, the Ahakiole system, where the governance comes from each Ahupua'a and from the bottom up. So that's the way I think when I try to answer the question that you just asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Given the criticism surrounding the function of OHA as a representative of all Native Hawaiians, how do you propose to address those that think OHA lacks transparency and accessibility?
That's a major problem that we have. We have statewide offices on each island, and these offices are not really connected to their communities. The trustees come to each island once a year, and we gotta wait 1 year before we can talk to them on Molokai. And when they come, they're not interested in what you're saying. They're more interested in selling you what they're doing. And they want you to say mahalo for all the grants. So all the guys with grants, they line up and they all speak first. You know, mahalo, mahalo for all the money you gave us for this and that. And that's the process. There's really no link. So I'm so fed up with that, you know, that's why I keep saying I want to go out there and organize the people and get them to be part of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Yeah, technically we're a state agency, but that doesn't mean we have to act like a state agency. We're a Hawaiian agency. So this transparency thing is going to stay there until we organize our people to become part of who OHA is and what they should be. So unity is really critical. I think it's time for us to unite as Hawaiians. I disagree a lot with what he was saying about this being what is really not. It's important for Hawaiians to become sovereignty in this state. The leadership in this state has taken us into a position where we've been totally disconnected with our resources. And if the Hawaiians receive their sovereignty, that means we're going to take away a historical kakio, a historical sword that's been there and is real and alive, and everybody keeps looking the other way, and it's hampering the progress of the state of Hawaii. So the problem is that the state has not given us good leadership. It's continental leadership on little dots in the middle of the Pacific that doesn't work. So we need to look at traditional knowledge. We need to look at people who have success stories in sustainability for thousands of years. That's the kind of leadership, that's the kind of knowledge that is going to allow all of us to live here on these islands forever and ever. And the people that have that knowledge are the Hawaiian people. And we've been pushed down, where we cannot really speak. And that's why I want to introduce bills so we sit on these things. That's ridiculous. We need to be leaders. We need to set the example. We need to tell people how to survive in the middle of the Pacific on these little dots of land. So I'm really a strong supporter of sovereignty. Mr. Makika wants to know where we stand on this commission. Either the commission is going to be an opportunity or it's going to be a threat. And I think it's an opportunity that we should look at really carefully and participate and see if we can turn the tide in bringing people together and Hawaiians together and to stop fighting with each other. It's good to fight the Akaka bill. It's something from the top down. This one is home-based. We have an opportunity to drive this car and come from the bottom up. So I really support this whole idea of the Role Commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our time here this evening. I wanted to thank all of you for participating in this forum discussion. You've provided us with a lot of great information. And how about a round of applause for all of the candidates here tonight? On behalf of Ahui o Hawaii and the William S. Richardson School of Law, we wanted to thank you all for coming. And we hope this forum has provided you with a lot of information to be able to help you make an informed choice. Remember to please go out and vote. Cast your vote and be heard. Thank you very much. Mahalo. Aloha.